Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. My name is Rob Lloyd. I teach in Drexel's digital media program. I also have the honor of being the coordinator for the senior project cohort, and I'll be your guide through today's adventure. So, we're here with Drexel University, West Falls College of Media, Art and Design, and the Department of Digital Media to celebrate the class of 2017. Thank you for being here. We're streaming live on the internet. You caught some links up there and some hashtags. Feel free to social at will. An event like this does not happen in a vacuum. We're gonna get to the show as quickly as possible, but there's a few people I have to call out and thank for helping put together this kind of event. It's 4 years in the making pretty much every time. So Daphne Wright is the administrator for our program and makes sure that I fill out all the right paperwork at the right time and keeps everybody in line. Jay Rappaport for IT and his crew make sure we have a steady supply of HDMI cables and they keep the labs running and the render farms going, so we thank them for that. Troy Finnemore helped with the promotional graphics that you're seeing on stage here and in the brochure. Nick Jashishin and his crew for keeping us captured not only for forever on film, but also streaming live to the internet today. Michael Wagner, the head of our department, he keeps me in line and offers me guidance in the same way that I try to offer the seniors guidance. Keeps me sane. Dean Alan Sabinson for his leadership and for his support to help keep this program and department a nationally ranked and strong group. So I thank you for that. We also have a couple of people in the audience. I believe we have the provost, Brian Blake, with us. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, all the faculty. There's so many different faculty. These are the ones within digital media that directly support the teams and are their individual advisors, as well as helped shape the students to be what they are today. And so, of course, most of all, you, the family, the friends, the loved ones who support your students to keep them awake and cared for and loved and sane and here and ready to present to you today. So I thank all of you for everything that it takes to get to here today. So very briefly, I want to give you a little bit of context of what it takes to get here. I won't tell you the entire 4-year saga. You're probably pretty familiar with a lot of it from the students. But the senior project is special. The senior capstone project begins right now. The juniors that'll be seniors next year are already coming up with ideas, congealing into teams, seeking out that special faculty advisor that will shepherd them through this process, and really getting into an experimental mood, trying to find that right project that's worthy of spending 3 terms on. And they'll do that all throughout the summertime. And then in the fall, they come in with their very best idea, the best of the best. And we, the digital media faculty, grind it to pieces and help them rebuild it again into something that's really, really worthy of 3 terms of effort. And it's amazing to see them respond to that and deal with the editing and the reconstruction that needs to happen at that stage. Winter is all about production. That's where you build the meat of it. All through winter time is the hard, dark days of staying in the labs and making sure it's all there in one piece. And they end winter with an all but done project. And then spring is about taking that all but done existence of a thing that they've made that's almost good enough to show, but not quite. And they really polish it and hone it and tune it and edit it all throughout the spring. And of course, they spend a little bit of time getting ready for this event here today. And that was what brings us here. And so a last couple of logistics. We're in a theater, so please silence your phones. And especially during the films, but throughout the presentations, please, no flash photography. Oh, not even a groan. That's my worst joke. All right. I promise you it gets worse from here. All right. So with that, I believe we said silence your phones. That's Siri. All right. There we go. All right. With that, we want to start with our first team, bringing you a fun twist On balancing asymmetric gameplay, I bring you Spork Studios.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you all for coming out this afternoon. We are Spork Studios, and we're here today to present to you our end-of-year video game project, Tilted. My name is Ariel Timar, and I was a production manager for this project.
My name is Tommy Ryan, and I worked in game design and animation.
Hi, my name is Ian Ambrose, and I also worked in game design and animation.
My name is Lexi Wagner. I worked in environment design and 3D art.
Hi, my name is Shan Yu, and I was art director and worked in character design.
With us today are also some of our programming team, which is composed of Omotola Akadedolu, Eric Chen, Duke Im, Ron Lee, Nico Kelly, and Jinkai Zhang. Without their help, we never would have gotten this far in our project. Without further ado, we'd like to show you how we conceptualized our video game Tilted.
So in our journey to get here, we pitched over a dozen potential game ideas. And during this process, we narrowed our focus down to two core concepts: cooperation and competition. These two elements are key in many multiplayer games, but are often experienced individually. Our goal was to combine these two elements so that our players can experience both cooperation and competition at the same time. However, we weren't sure how to achieve this. This idea of players trapped inside a maze kept coming up, but there was a lack of incentive for these competing players to work with each other. To help with this, we created a common enemy for the other players to unite against. This was a good jumping off point, but the game still lacked that balance of cooperation and competition we were looking for, until we realized, what if the balance between them was literally the balance? What if the environment was like the labyrinth tabletop game, dynamically shifting and tilting depending on where the players are inside the map? This allowed for dual objectives, one in which players are competing against each other, and the other where they must work together to keep the environment balanced. And that is how Tilted was born.
We hope you enjoyed the first look trailer of our project Tilted. Tilted is a 4-player game that takes place in a constantly changing and unbalanced world. 3 players, called the Runners, compete to collect gems while also working together to keep the environment safe and balanced from the 4th player, the Master Player, who has the ability to manipulate the environment in order to flip it over. With that, we'd like to walk you through the design of this game, as well as our process for developing the artistic elements of this project.
The most unique aspect of this game is the environment that we've developed. Imagine a world that is entirely balanced around a single point, as if it's laying on the tip of a pin. Any change to the environment's original balance will cause the world to tilt and possibly flip over. In addition, by having an odd number of players inside a square environment, players are not able to evenly distribute their weight, making it more difficult to maintain balance. Aside from the physical balance of the environment, we've also created an atmosphere where players must balance cooperation and competition. 3 players that we call runners are stuck in this unbalanced world and must work together to maintain the balance of the environment in order to stay alive. However, only one player can win, so they compete with each other, racing to collect the most gems. By having this conflict of interest, players are forced to make decisions, taking into account the well-being of the group, while also trying to achieve their own personal goals. The runner's gameplay is defined by how well they're able to balance cooperation and competition. Runners can talk to each other in order to maintain proper distance to ensure that the world won't flip, or they can completely ignore that and shove each other out of the way to get to the gems first. They also can break through obstacles if they find themselves in a bad position, but they have to be careful about using this ability, since any obstacles that are broken will go directly into the master's inventory. The fourth player, who I just mentioned, is an omnipotent overseer that we call the master. The master's goal is to rid the world of these three runner characters, and to do that, he needs to either flip over the environment, defeating them all at once, or he must take them out one by one. The master can manipulate the world by adding and removing parts of the environment. By adding and removing trees and shrubbery, he can impede runners' progress as well as throw off the balance of the environment. Also, by placing obstacles such as boulders that can roll around in the environment depending on how it's balanced and possibly crush runners, the master has a way to directly defeat his opponents individually. The master starts the game with 3 obstacles that he can place anywhere in the environment, but in order to place more beyond that point, he must first remove obstacles from other places throughout the map.
With that, we hope you enjoyed learning how we designed this game to be as fun and interesting as possible. We had to learn a lot about our game, but also how we wanted our audience to interact with it throughout the course of this year. We now like to show you how our art assets affected the gameplay and what we went through to be able to develop these assets.
With our 3 runner characters, we wanted them to be easily distinguishable from the rest. So we started off creating silhouettes to test whether their basic design would stand out from one another. Then, we moved into a more detailed concept art of what the runners would look like, followed by the actual modeling before layering on the texturing. Our 3 runners consist of the Explorer, Pirate, and Viking. Each have arrived to these ruins with their own purpose. The Explorer is exploring, the Pirate is pirating, and the Viking is on his spiritual journey of self-discovery. A similar process was applied to our master character. As a ghost overlord of the map that the runners find themselves in, we wanted to create an imposing figure looming above.
The master's shrine is located in the center of the environment, and it links him to the real world. In order to defeat the master, runners must deposit their gathered gems into the shrine, and once they've deposited 3, the shrine overloads and the master is vanquished. At the start in the environment design process, we naturally leaned towards hedge mazes for inspiration and used a basic layout of cubes to represent the walls. However, once we started putting the models in, we realized that they would actually impede the runner's field of vision. So we put down trees instead, which allowed the runners to more easily see and navigate through the environment while still being obstructed. With this new layout in mind, we began the concepting phase for the environment, starting with silhouette blocks. These blocks were placed side by side to each other and compared so that they would be cohesive and have a solid aesthetic. Once we decided on the style we liked, we then moved on to the next phase. The black and white silhouettes turned into more detailed, full color drawings. These fleshed out concepts gave us the visuals we needed to move forward. We used the colored drawings as blueprints to create 3D models and arrange them onto their own blocks. We populated the blocks with several different types of trees, bushes, assorted small plants, and rocks to add appeal to the overall game look, as well as act as obstacles for the runners. In-game, these blocks populate the map randomly so that runners can have a varied experience every time they play. And so, with all that planning and production, we pieced everything together and got our final result.
The decisions we made on the art side of this project always reflected what we felt would improve the player's experience. From changing the walls so that the runners could see, to changing the colors of the players to be brighter and have a better contrast against the background. This year was a time for us to learn how to balance both gameplay and artwork, but it also taught us to keep the player first and foremost in mind. We hope you enjoyed learning about our game and seeing the process that we went through for developing it. Before we close out, we want to give a special thanks to our advisor, Ji-Chen Zhu, as well as the rest of the digital media faculty for their support throughout these 4 years. In addition, we'd like to thank our wonderful composer, Joshua Berlin, as well as our family and friends for their support. Lastly, we'd like to thank everyone who helped us by playing this game in order to give us critique and test it in order to give the players a better experience. We'll always be thankful for your support. Thank you all so much for coming out to see our presentations today. Make sure to stop by our showcase after this show and to play out our game. And if you're interested, you can download our game at tiltedgame.com if you want to play when you go home. We hope you enjoy the rest of the presentations. Thank you.
All right, let's go. I also want to thank President Fry for joining us today. I missed you in the audience earlier, so thank you so much for being here, for your support. Cross-platform play brings about the death of the universe. Brought to you by Project Teona.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you for coming out today. We are Project Teona, and this is our game, Lightmare. I'm Angela Buchanan, and I am the design lead.
Jonathan Schoenfeld. I worked on audio and quarterly and playtesting.
I'm Mani Liang. I'm the user interface designer.
I'm Lachey Scott. I'm the environment artist.
I'm Shuping Zhen. I'm a user experience designer.
I'm Chris. I do quality control.
And we'd like to start off by showing you a quick teaser trailer of our game. Lightmare takes place in the world of Lumen, the last light of the universe. But that light is fading away, and Lumen is approaching her death. You and another player take on the role of the daughter of Lumen and her mysterious masked companion, both born from the shadows of the world with a shared goal in mind. Working together, the two must traverse through the emotions felt by the dying world, defeating enemies composed of light along the way. Their goal is to reach the very core of Lumen so that the daughter can convince her mother, the soul of Lumen, to let go of her life so that a cycle of rebirth can take place and a new world can be reborn.
So Lightmare is a cross-platform game. 2 players, each on their own device, are required to play Lightmare. One is on a computer and the other is on their phone. The player on the computer plays as the daughter of Lumen, who is in charge of combat. And the player on their phone plays as the daughter of Lumen's mysterious masked companion, who is a support character that uses shadow manipulation to assist the computer player.
One of the unique aspects of Lightmare is the shadow mechanic. This is carried out by the masked companion in order to help aid Lumen's daughter. Shifting shadows in Lumen's environment can have different effects. For instance, if the shadow is moved onto Lumen's daughter, it will help strengthen her attack power and increase her defense. If the shadow is moved onto an enemy, it will help weaken their attack power and lower their defense. And finally, if the shadow is moved onto an obstacle, such as fire, it will help extinguish it.
Lightmare has 5 levels. Each level's emotion is represented through its color and composition. Our first level is Denial, which represents Lumen's denial and is a tutorial level for our players to learn the game's mechanics. Next, we have our Anger level, which represents Lumen's anger and is a more chaotic environment. Then, our player will progress to our Bargaining level, which presents the player with confusion, winding paths, and decision-making as Lumen's way of trying to bargain with you. Then, our player will progress to our Depression level, which is a more scarce environment representing Lumen's emotion as you progress closer to defeating her. Lastly, we have our Acceptance level, where the player will encounter Lumen and engage in the final battle of our game. In addition, each level has its own unique set of enemies with their own unique abilities to pose a challenge for the players as they try to progress through each level.
During our production phase, there were some design challenges that we had to overcome. For example, adding death to a 2D game. Nightmare is 2D, but it has been programmed to have a death-like 3D game. This was because we want to increase the interactive experience of the shadow manipulation functionality. So things like level layout and enemies had to design to work cohesively with Nightmare's 3D movement. Another significant design challenge is to balance simple and fun mechanics. We wanted Nightmare to be simple and engaging. We wanted to focus on a few set of mechanics and put our efforts towards making those mechanics fun and entertaining. This requires a lot of discussion texting, and revisions to create mechanics that were novel but easy for a new player to quickly understand.
Okay, so we're going to segue into a demo of Lightmare being played in a little bit here. On the left-hand side, we have the guy playing the desktop player on his computer, and on the right, we have the woman on the mobile device. Let's see how they do. This is our stage Denial. The primary role of the desktop player is to engage and destroy enemies in combat. The mobile player's primary role is that of support. She does that by moving shadows to the enemies, making them weaker, or to the desktop player, moving shadows to her to make her stronger. This enemy is a featured enemy on Denial that normally has a very high defense. However, when exposed to shadow, it causes the enemy to come out of its shell, lowering its defense and allowing it to be killed rapidly. This is our stage Anger. On the right, you could see a wall of fire that normally the player cannot pass. However, when the mobile player moves 2 or more shadows over that wall of fire, you'll see it become extinguished, which will allow the desktop player to make progress past that point. This is our stage Depression. Those points of light actually represent the last little bits of hope that Lumen has for its own survival. The player characters, being agents of entropy and destruction, are sent within Lumen to destroy the hope and everything else that remains in that world.
So once again, I'd like to give a special thanks to everyone who was able to make it out today. I'd also like to thank our advisors, Jervis Thompson and Robert Lloyd, for guiding us along the way. I'd also like to give a special thanks to friends and family who provide us with their support. And I'd also like to thank our audio team, which gave our game beautiful music and sound effects throughout the entire game. You can learn more about our project at projectkayona.com. And if you'd like to play our game, please visit our booth after the showcase. Once again, we hope you all enjoy the rest of the presentations. Thank you.
From the struggles of the universe to the struggles of a family, as told by Screaming Goats Animation Studios.
Oh, thank you.
There's plenty of seats, so you can find your way up into the seats. You've got plenty of place to sit down.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're Screaming Goat Animation Studios. My name is Elif. I'm the project lead and animation director.
I'm Ellie. I'm technical director.
I'm Kathy. I'm the character artist.
I'm Vicky, an environment and concept artist.
I'm Lawrence, the modeler and layout artist.
And I'm Sam, modeler and animator. And we are here today to present to you our animated short, Broken Pieces.
finally going to be a family again. This is great. This is just so, honey, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be the greatest time of our lives. We're going to have a family again.
And he's really excited, but I don't know. I don't think that I can do it again.
What does this pregnancy mean to you?
Honey? I'm back. Smells good in here. My beautiful girls. See you after work.
Love you, honey.
Love you.
Can we go out and play?
Okay, but remember, inside.
No, inside the fence.
Good. Kids, no! Get away from there! You could have been hurt. What were you thinking?
We just wanted to.
Home? Now.
But Mommy, Bamboo's down there.
What are you?
Why did you leave him, Mommy? He's so lonely.
Now that you've seen our animation, we'd like to show you a bit of what we have today. Ever since we came together as a team not so long ago, we all realized that we wanted to focus on this dark theme surrounding the emotion of loss. Over the course of a year, we realized that we had to go through multiple story iterations.
While we drew out storyboards after storyboard, we felt that we needed to see our ideas in 3D space to fully conceptualize each storyline. So we decided to integrate motion capture into our pre-visualization pipeline. By transferring live performances onto 3D characters, we were able to visualize our stories before we actually began production.
Our characters stayed relatively similar throughout our differing story ideas. Initially, we were planning to have more cartoony and stylistic characters. However, as we developed our story and began modeling, we thought that a more realistic character would better benefit our sophisticated theme. Having our first pass characters, we realized that we still wanted to embellish features like the eyes, both for stylistic purposes and to better emphasize our characters' emotions. Once we have the final models, we then added texture and hair to bring our characters to life.
In order to animate our characters, we first needed to create their control rigs, and these rigs are made of manually placed bones and joints that allow the animators to move and bring life to our characters. This can be a pretty technical and tedious process, so with having 4 separate characters to rig, we needed to find a way to make this process as efficient as possible for us. So when we created the base rig for our first character, we decided to add a scalable attribute that allowed us to grow and shrink our rig to the general proportions of our other characters. So with only a slight amount of modifications, we were able to build all our control rigs without starting each one from scratch. And we even rigged our bear character, Bamboo, to allow for his movement in his various shots. And once our rigs were handed off to our animators, they then spent some time practicing, doing some fun little exercises.
We had a total of 9 outfits, 3 for mom, 3 for dad, 2 for the kids, and 1 for the twins. With this amount of clothing to make, we decided to use a software called Marvelous Designer. It's a program in which you can virtually cut and sew garments together, just like traditional sewing.
It was also important that we created a rich and vast exterior that accompanies our characters throughout their struggles in the whole animation. For that, we got View in our labs is a software that creates digital and nature scenery, and we got in our labs a few weeks ago. By learning View and adding it to our pipeline, we were able to create environment layout that was pre-conceptualized.
In regards to our interior environment, each object was individually modeled by our artist. Once completed, our layout artist takes these items and places them in the various scenes. After that, textures are added to the objects for our final pass.
Once our animations were finalized, we then worked on hair simulations. The way we simulated our hair was using a system of dynamic curves that drive the movement of each individual hair strand. And our mother character alone had over 1,000 of these dynamic curves. And because our character interacts with multiple types of environments, our biggest challenge was to tweak the physical attributes of the hair system to allow for a believable movement of the hair while also helping to invoke emotion in each shot.
Now let's take you through our animation pipeline. First, our animators record live action references of themselves. Then, after multiple steps of refinement, we reach our final animation. Then we add simulations and then lighting and color correction.
Now let's take you through the process. Now that you've seen the process of what we've gone through, we hope you understand that a lot of time and effort went into finalizing each and every shot. But at the same time, while everything looks good, we did have our issues. We did have buggy renders, we had texture issues, and we had render problems. But all together, we came as a team and we solved each and every problem, and together we became better artists because of it.
We had our ups and downs. We didn't know what to expect until we started spending 60 hours a week or just threading through the snow to get to the labs to spend those 60 hours a week in the labs. But we can definitely agree that we are very fortunate to have been in this team, and we wouldn't have done it anything differently.
Before we go, we would like to extend our gratitude to our advisor, Nick Jushishan, for always pushing us to do our best work.
We'd like to thank Rob Lloyd for guiding us through this entire capstone process.
And special thanks to the Digham faculty for your support and guidance for the past 4 years.
Thanks to our audio team and our voice actors.
We want to thank family and friends for all the love and support that helped us through this journey to get this animation completed.
And finally, we want to thank you for being here with us today. If you want to learn more about our project, please come visit us at www.screaminggoatsr.us to learn more. If you want, we'll be upstairs at our booth, so come visit us. Thank you.
And from that, please, if you are looking for seats, we still have plenty of seats up top, so find your way. I believe Senior Vice President Saunders has joined us. Yes, thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. For our next team, I believe the report is 100% chance of rain in the city. And so I bring you to High Water by Glass Prison Games.
Hi, everyone. Like Lloyd said, we are Glass Prison Games, and we're so excited to be here today to share with you our senior project, High Water. I'm Matt Bodner. I was the art lead and also a technical artist on the project.
I'm Dave Peterson. I was primarily a modeler and texturer.
I'm Joseph Santos. I was also a modeler and texturer. I'm Kanajan Osmillo, and I worked on the look development as well as the 2D texturing.
I'm Andrew Milet. I worked on the character art as well as some of the music.
I'm Michael Rodriguez, and I was a 3D modeler.
And we'd also like to take a moment to recognize our wonderful CCI team who was with us every step of the way, and we couldn't be here today without their help and support. So what is High Water? High Water is a procedurally generated survival game set in a flooded and abandoned city where you play as the last remaining survivor. You have to fight rising waters in an endless storm to survive as you make your way to the tallest building in the city where you plan to wait to be rescued.
Attention, get to higher ground immediately. It is not safe on the ground. The forecast for today is wind 35 knots south-southwest. Heavy rain expected in the early evening with a high of 42 degrees. If you can hear this, we are coming to save you. Get to higher ground and stay out of the water. We are coming for you.
So this is the world of High Water. Through the use of procedural generation, we are able to create a robust city for our player to explore. We do this by taking different building pieces and rooftop pieces and stacking them together the same way you would Legos. In doing so, we're able to create unique structures to populate the city. So while there's always a constant storm surrounding you, the city layout will change gameplay to gameplay, which creates a dynamic player experience.
We do this using Voronoi diagrams with seed points created using Poisson distribution. This gets us the image that you see on the left. Each of these sections on that image is a separate district. Each district in High Water has separate buildings that you can find in it and is unique to compared to other districts. Once we have our districts, we separate the district into a grid shape, like you can see in the center image. And then on that grid, we place our procedurally generated buildings. Here you can see 6 different cities being generated in real time. Each city is similar but still unique and offers a different play experience every time.
One of our biggest challenges was to create enough discarded objects and trash to make the city feel like it's been recently inhabited. The idea behind this is to further capture the feeling of isolation that we want to convey with high water. We want to make the city feel like its citizens dropped everything as soon as the waters started rushing in, leaving most of their prized possessions behind. The player does not interact with these items, but they are very much a part of our city. Certain buildings act as notable points of interest for the player to explore. Much like in the real world, focal points such as schools, hospitals, and radio towers, all of which you see behind me, stand out as unique places in the city. These buildings, unlike the rest of the game, are not procedurally generated and act as constants for the player to locate, no matter how the rest of the city is laid out from playthrough to playthrough.
So even though the player is completely alone above the water, below the water, we worked hard to create a world filled with life. We created different species of fish, plants, and even mammals that live under the water. It was really important to us to get these fish species just right because fish is actually the main source of food for the player. One of the first things a player can do is craft a fishing rod and use it to catch fish for food. We also have an elusive whale that if you see, you're very lucky. But even though below the water there's a world filled with life, the player is still completely alone and isolated above it.
So this is the concept art for our character. Originally, we wanted to make a character that was simple and fitting with the environment as the player takes control of a lost soul in an empty city. So the transition from concept to in-game asset was pretty natural. And this is our final in-game render. The final design of our character is topped off with flourishes of dirt and grime to emphasize the conditions that the player must go through along their journey.
Again, the main focus of our game is to invoke this feeling of loneliness. So in order to do that, we first have the player come into the game into an empty rooftop, and we show them how to go through and navigate our city. So one of the first things you can do is jump across small gaps between buildings. In addition to that, you can also find lifts scattered throughout the side of the buildings, which you can use to scale vertically. Throughout the game, you're always fighting against the water, which is constantly rising due to the storm. Throughout the day, we have different phases of low and high tide, but outside of that, it's always raining. So you're always against the rising waters.
In order to create the storm, we use real-world data to create a simulated storm. In this image, you can see our pressure system as it works. Red spheres represent low-pressure systems, while blue spheres represent high-pressure systems. The pressure systems interact with one another, and as they do, rotational forces are applied, keeping the storm spinning. It was really important to us to get this just right because the storm is the most important part of the game. It affects how fast the water rises, the number of fish the player will be able to encounter, as well as how fast the player will get cold. Because the more wet the player gets, the faster they'll get cold, and it's really important to try to stay warm as you're surviving in an abandoned city.
Exploration is key to our game. So we've provided the player a bunch of items that they can find throughout the rooftops of the city. These items can be later manipulated through our inventory system and our crafting system. In this example here, we can see that the player is running up to a rooftop and there's a door for them. Outside of this door, once you open it, you'll receive an X amount of items that you can use. Here's our inventory system, and each item has its own unique set of statistics, so players can strategize and figure out what items they will find useful. Items can also be manipulated individually. So as you can see here, we have a river reed, and we are weaving it into rope. Once you've finished manipulating your items in your inventory system, you can go into our more robust crafting system. So you can build different big items out of this. All the text that is highlighted are items that you have enough material to craft, while the grayed out items are items that have not enough materials to make. So you would have to strategize again. One of the first things players have is that they have enough material to create a raft, which is one of the main ways to travel through our city.
You, as a player, have 3 different statistics to take care of: health, warmth, and hunger. Your health is your overall state of well-being. Warmth is your ability to stay dry, in shelter, and near sources of warmth whenever possible. Hunger is your ability to keep yourself fed using resources throughout the world, such as fishing and cooking. From the very beginning of the game, your warmth and hunger are depleting. Once those wither away, your overall health begins to drop. Once that reaches 0, the game is over. The water rising also affects the player's health and warmth, as swimming in the water will exert the player's energy even more than normal, and it will cause them to become colder more quickly. These are additional reasons why using the raft is very important.
Staying well fed is one of the more critical aspects of high water. There's a wide variety of food located throughout the city. Through fishing on the water or scavenging through the rooftops, you can find different food items such as fish, eggs, or plants. Some of these items you can eat immediately after you find them, others you have to prepare through cooking. For those items that you prepare through cooking, you have to first find a fire source, such as a campfire. It's important to remember that different foods fill you up at different rates. However, you could choose to eat something as soon as you find it. However, you run the risk of getting food poisoning.
The only companion you have in high water is your radio, which, through the valiant efforts of people outside the city, gives you real-time updates regarding the weather, as well as a glimpse into the hopes and dreams of the residents of the city before the storm washed them all away. There are multiple channels, each with a different purpose in telling the story of high water. High water's real-time weather updates are delivered using a text-to-speech system that is connected to the complex weather system. You may have heard it in our trailer. The benefit of using text-to-speech is both practical and aesthetic, as it would have been impossible to generate enough actual voice acting to cover every single state that the weather could be in. It also mimics the feel of urgent weather warnings that are broadcast on the radio in real life, particularly during floods. However, we also felt it was important to establish a real human narrative with the player. To this end, members of both the CCI and digital media teams, pictured behind me, recorded voice acting from a variety of different types of people who lived in the city. This includes meteorologists, scientists, hospital workers, religious fanatics, and normal everyday people. With this channel, we wanted to establish the widespread damage the storm has caused, both physically and emotionally, to the city and the people who were able to leave it.
If the player does manage to survive long enough to get to the tallest building, they can climb to the top, turn on a beacon to signal for help. And if they do that, they might just find that someone was waiting to rescue them the whole time. We hope you've enjoyed hearing about high water and how far we've come during our time here at Drexel.
Before we wrap up, we'd like to give a special thank you to our wonderful advisor, Dr. Frank Lee, as well as alumni Tom Sharp, for imparting his experience onto us. We would also like to thank Professor Robert Lloyd, as well as the entire digital media department for their help with high water. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today. In addition, we would like to send a congratulations to our CCI side, who made it to the Final Four within CCI's own internal senior project competition, and we're pleased to report that they got first place. High water is now free to download. You can go download it at lastpersongames.com.wordpress/download. You can also come visit us at our booth. Thank you.
It's not all fun and games. A Drexel autism researcher got some serious help from Team Drexel.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. We are Team Drexel, a 6-member interactive digital media team. In partnership with Dr. Elizabeth Hasrick, a sociologist from the Drexel Autism Institute, we created Drexel. Built from the ground up, Drexel is a web application that bridges communication between parents, teachers, and other caregivers in the lives of students with autism spectrum disorder. This next short video will better explain Dr. Hasrick's research as well as the purpose of our application.
My name is Elizabeth Hasrick. I'm an assistant professor here at the A.J. Drexel Autism Institute. Our mission here at the Institute is to help people on the spectrum, their families, their communities, organizations that support them, to help coordinate and support people on the spectrum across the life course. So as a sociologist, my goal is to create tools to help do this for people on the spectrum. Previously, collecting data about how people are coordinating to help people on the spectrum I've been using pen and paper instruments that take a lot of time. They're pretty inaccurate. You can have a lot of trouble transferring the pen and paper data onto databases for analysis. A lot of mistakes can be made during that time. For the app, parents will be able to work with teachers and paraprofessionals and aides and bus aides and school administrators who are involved in intervention for these children on the spectrum. And you can also include people in the community and bring them into the circle of people, the team that's working for the child. And the school administrators will be managing this from the school side. The family will be able to give all the permissions so that we're making sure that we're complying with all HIPAA requirements. And my job will be to be, managing, tracking, analyzing, and feeding back the data to the participants.
So hi everyone, I'm Craig, a designer and project manager for Team Trestle. To quickly recap the video, there were two primary obstacles we tackled in creating Trestle. First was Dr. Hasrick's method of paper and pencil data collection. This was very tedious and unreliable. Second, Dr. Hasrick discovered that parents and teachers of students with autism were often communicating poorly or not at all. These obstacles came to light during our initial meetings with Dr. Hasrick. As we continued to meet and discuss our research, the goals and needs of the application started to become clear. One of the first things we needed to do was figure out who our users would be. Based on the people involved in Dr. Hasrick's research, we determined our app would have 4 main user types. First is Dr. Hasrick. She is responsible for managing and entering all Trestle accounts. Second is the school administrator. The school administrator is a faculty member at a school where Dr. Hasrick is conducting her research. They are responsible for pairing the students to the teachers that they work with throughout the school day. Lastly, parents and teachers make up our 2 main user groups. They generate the majority of the data used in Dr. Hasrick's research. We'll come back to talk more about these user types a little bit later, but first we'll talk about our design process.
Hi everyone, I'm Diego and I was part of the design team. From the start, we designed Trestle to be simple, intuitive, but also fun. This helps streamline the data collection process, but also provided an engaging user experience. We utilized whiteboards to map out our designs and refine our ideas. And from these brainstorming sessions, we created user journeys. These user journeys helped us see how the users would navigate throughout the application. We then created wireframes for each of our different user types. They helped us figure out where the content would be placed before any styling was applied.
Hello everyone, I'm Farah. I'm also part of the design team. As stated before, we wanted to design Trestle to be simple, intuitive, but fun. After multiple iterations based on a sort of feedback and research, we were able to come up with fully custom, colorful, and clean look. In addition to all the elements in the style guide, we also wanted to include our Trestle mascot into the design as well. By appearing throughout the app, the Trestle mascot as a more friendlier and inviting feel.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I'm also on the design team, and I focused on user experience design in particular to make sure that our app resonated well with potential users. We applied our style guide to our overall design to create a cohesive, simple to navigate application. Our colorful theme helped guide the user's attention throughout the app to buttons, menus, and areas of the page. While we were developing the app, we were able to test our app in prototyping software called Envision. Through Envision, we were able to gain valuable feedback from parents, teachers, and colleagues of Dr. Hasrick. With this feedback, we were able to make changes to our design and change our prototype accordingly.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm the front-end developer. The front-end developer is responsible for coding everything within the application that the user sees. As Craig previously mentioned, Trestle has 4 different user groups. There's Dr. Hasrick, the school administrator, the teachers, and the parents. Now I'm going to walk through how each user type uses Trestle. When Dr. Hasrick logs in, she's able to add different school groups based on the schools participating in her research. Within these school groups, she's able to add and delete parents and teachers, as well as assign a school administrator. Next, when the school administrator logs in, they're able to pair the teachers with the students that they're working with. Finally, when the parents and teachers log in, they're able to view different children's profiles. You can think of these profiles as sort of like Facebook timelines, but instead of updating progress about themselves, they're updating progress about how the child learns. Within these progress, they're called the feedback modules. And within the feedback modules, they're posting the strategies that they use to help the child learn. These strategies could be anything, such as using flashcards to help teach vocabulary or using positive reinforcement to help teach proper social actions. Finally, once a week, the parents and teachers are asked to fill out simple questionnaires filled with questions determined by Dr. Hasrick for the research that he's conducting.
Hi, I'm Jake, the team's backend developer. As a backend developer, I was responsible for making sure that the data the users generated was properly stored within our database. Trestle was built on 4 core technologies: MongoDB, Express, AngularJS, and Node.js. Together, these are conveniently called the mean technology stack. Using these software technologies allowed Sarah and I the opportunity to challenge and build on our development skills while also building Trestle on a high functioning and reliable platform, one that's well respected within the industry. 2 additional components to Trestle's development were data storage and data security. We learned how to store our data on Amazon Web Services to make sure it was in secure and dependable hands. We also made sure to build Trestle around industry's best security practices while encrypting connections and hashing personal user information. This user data was answers to questionnaires that Sarah just talked about, as well as feedback parents and teachers leave for children. Lastly, once all of this valuable information is stored within our database, Dr. Hasrick only has to click a single button now to download it all and begin using it within our research. A much easier process than before. We hope that with Trestle's help, Dr. Hasrick will be able to quickly further her research to new levels.
We'd like to thank you all for being here today as we were able to walk through Trestle in front of all of you. We'd like to give a special thank you to Troy Finnemore, our advisor throughout this whole process, Professor Robert Lloyd, Dr. Elizabeth Hasrick, and everyone who's participated in her research, the entire Dignam faculty for their feedback along the way, and of course our family and friends for their unconditional love and support. Thank you very much, and check out our booth after the show.
Bringing new meaning to the phrase, "Go play in your room," is 11th Hour Studios with Astral Raiders.
Hello, everybody. We are 11th Hour Studios. My name is Nicholas Achavati. I'm the playtest lead.
My name's James Fulmer. I'm a designer.
I'm Lucas Harb, lead designer.
I'm Ethan Colt, our producer.
I'm John Keogh, a designer.
I'm Bernie Sheeran, a 3D artist.
I'm Vincent Slifer, the lead programmer.
I'm Rachel Wenner, our team's marketer.
And I'm Justin Wu, a 3D artist. We are advised by Professor Paul Diefenbach, and we are accompanied by a computer science team advised by Professor Rosina Weber. We additionally recruited a concept artist, Danny Banner, who is a product design major, and an audio team from the audio post crew led by Jackson Munford. And we are here to present Astral Raiders, an action tower defense game developed for the Microsoft HoloLens.
Astral Raiders is being developed for augmented reality, or AR. You may be familiar with some augmented reality apps, such as Snapchat or Pokemon Go. These apps are just the beginning of how augmented reality can actually be used in gaming. They just place digital objects in your world, and those objects don't interact with the real world. Additionally, when you are tired of
The Microsoft HoloLens, however, allows us to map the real world and insert the digital into it. It's the first full augmented reality device available for developers to use.
So in our game, a spaceship crashes into your room where its captain, Atlas, tells you he's being followed by space pirates. You must defeat enemies and collect scrap metal to build defenses to help you defeat more waves of enemies. Here's a sneak peek at our trailer.
Come in. Can anyone hear me? This is Captain Atlas in need of immediate assistance. I'm sending out a homing beacon. Well, not my smoothest landing. The name's Atlas and I'm in quite a pickle. Incoming space pirates! Boom! Booyah!
So what is the difference between Astral Raiders and a classic game? Typically, games are played in front of a computer or a television screen, which makes for a stationary experience. This makes it really difficult to create a more immersive experience like the one we have with Astral Raiders.
Virtual reality is awesome, as you'll see in a later presentation, but physical movement is rather difficult. You're surrounded in a 3D environment that surrounds your vision, so physical awareness of objects around you is not very easy. You may bump into things, hit people, and become disoriented. And no matter where you play, whether it is traditional or virtual games, you get the same stationary experience.
Augmented reality is awesome because it offers a solution to those problems. We can create an immersive experience like in virtual reality where the player firsthand experiences everything, but they're not limited by the goggles. They can see their environment. They're not limited to obstructions and wires. Additionally, when you are tired of the game world you're playing in, you can just relocate to another room to have a totally new experience.
We focused on two main concepts when we developed this game. Two concepts that we thought would make for a strong AR experience: movement and immersion. We wanted the player to move around and make the best use of their room while staying engaged and having fun with the mixed reality. This is how we came to the idea of Astral Raiders.
When we were first introduced to HoloLens, we saw amazing opportunities in front of us, but we also saw some challenges. There's not many developers currently developing for the HoloLens, which resulted in a lack of documentation and tutorials to guide us. Currently, applications on the HoloLens are experimental in nature, not clearly defining standards for gaming in AR, which required us to work in this trial and error work process to hit our current quality. Lastly, the HoloLens is not on the market, only available to the developers making the first generation of AR apps.
In our game, when you kill an enemy, they drop scrap metal. That scrap metal can be picked up and used at our in-game store to purchase emplacements that you place around your room to use against the horde of enemies that are flying in through portals.
Captain Lug's fleet of Astral Raiders is comprised of powerful ships and distracting drones, all with the goal of weakening you and taking out Atlas. These enemies warp into your room through portals on the wall and all come in various shapes and sizes. This is the construction ship manned by Atlas, who's stolen the ship as a means of escaping his previous life of piratery under the evil Captain Lug. This is the central point that you keep coming back to in order to build defenses and protect them.
These emplacements gave us the ability to use entire rooms within our gameplay, allowing for a variety of strategies. You can take the emplacements and place them along the wall so that way you can get the Astral Raiders as they come through the portals, or you can make a bunker around Atlas's ship. It's up to you to find the best strategy.
Our first and primary emplacement is the burst turret, which is a triple-barreled cannon that fires a standard volley of shots. And then we have the flame trap, which is a deadly simplification of the ship's flame tank, which torches enemies that fly above it.
Next, we have the absorbing shield, which projects a decoy, a hologram of the construction ship
in order to trick enemies and draw their fire. Lastly, we have the EMP Tower. Cobbled together from scavenged magnetic coils and gravity plates, it releases a devastating electromagnetic pulse that stops enemies in their tracks.
When we were around designing our enemies, we remember watching Disney's Treasure Planet as kids. We were interested in the theme of space pirates. So combining grandiose ship design with a ramshackle sci-fi look, we've come to the look that you see today.
The two main ships in Lug's fleet are the bulky clunker and the fast and nimble skiff. Each have different strategic focuses that make use of your full arsenal of emplacements. If the skiff is too fast, use the EMP tower to slow it down. If there are too many clunkers, place down an absorbing shield to group them together and more easily take them out. These ships will fly around your room, weaving around objects and furniture while trying to get clear shots at Atlas.
Lug is accompanied by an army of drones at his disposal. The two drones in his fleet are the Thief and the Saboteur. The Thief goes after you, the player, in an effort to steal scrap metal. If the Thief gets too close to the player, then it starts to steal, or you start to lose scrap metal, and your shooting is disrupted. The only remedy to this is to run away from the Thief and to use your emplacements to rid yourself of the drone. The Saboteur is a drone that focuses mainly on your emplacements. It'll go and it'll disrupt them for a short amount of time. That is up to you to go and destroy the Saboteur before it reaches its destination.
Our first technical challenge with the HoloLens was getting it to scan your room in order to bring our digital world in with the real world. Documentation and code from Microsoft only got us so far, and we required our own tests to find out the best method for scanning. Our early prototypes had you scanning the room while you were playing, but we found this to create buggy and disjointed experiences. Our current iteration of the game has you scanning the room before you play, and this creates a better performance and an anchored experience. Another challenge we had was getting the enemies to interact with the world. Traditionally, games have a static environment set by designers. However, HoloLens uses any room you're in, making it a dynamic environment with obstacles that we may not be able to account for. Our solution to this was to have our enemies find random points in the room and blend the movement together so that they'll simulate a bobbing and weaving motion in the room.
The technical limitation of the HoloLens are like that of a mobile device, like a cell phone, which is less powerful than a desktop computer or a video game console. We went through multiple iterations of our 3D models to ensure that they had maximum readability at all angles and distances, while making sure that they did not negatively impact the performance of the game.
The HoloLens also does not render dark values very well, meaning we couldn't use a lot of black. Because of this, we had to work in bright saturation and lighter colors. Lighting the game world was also problematic for us because it is dynamic. It changes every room you're in. So to combat this, we use global lights that require no real-world positioning, as well as particle and bloom effects to create a mimic of a more traditional light setup.
We were lucky enough to be invited to the Philly Tech Week event focusing on AR and VR technology at the Microsoft Reactor. Here, we got to showcase our game to a new audience, consisting of enthusiasts like us, but also those with no knowledge of this technology, such as this woman struggling with her first AR experience. What we noticed from this was that we needed to have a more streamlined and stronger tutorial so that everyone could enjoy our game, specifically those that are having their first time on the HoloLens. As we finish our journey, we'd like to thank Professor Paul Diefenbach, Professor Robert Lloyd, and all of Digital Media's faculty for their constructive criticism. Professor Rosina Weber and our entire CCI team for assisting us to develop this game. Danny Banner, Cam Neely, and the entire audio post crew for helping us throughout the year without any grade on the line. Amanda Lang and the Microsoft Reactor, who gave us the resources we needed to make this game. And of course, our family, friends, and playtesters who supported us these last 9 months. Visit us at 11thhourgames.com to learn more about our project. And of course, we'll see you in the exhibit so you can experience Astral Raiders in AR. Thank you.
From space pirates to space creatures, as told by Dragon Bones Productions.
How's everyone doing? All right. We are Dragon Bones Productions, a 5-person team focused on character animation. I'm Callie. I'm the project manager and a rigger.
I'm Anna, animator and rigger.
I'm Will, a modeler and animator.
I'm Aviva. I did previs and animation.
And I'm Aiden. I did modeling and animation. And now we'd like to introduce our project, Alone. Alone is a story about a man and a mysterious creature which he encounters while exploring an alien planet. And now, without further ado, we'd like to introduce our animation to you. And now, let's take a look at how we got here over the past 10 months.
So we came together as a team over 10 months ago over a shared interest in doing a character animation with no dialogue. From the very beginning, we are always passionate about exploring themes of friendship, exploration, and discovery. With these themes in mind, we began to develop our story. This was a very iterative process that spanned the entire pre-production stages of our animation. With every change came a new idea, a new storyboard. And we went through about 15 revisions before we got to the story that you saw here today. This included going through a numerous amount of environments, a dog that glowed, a crashed ship, and several different turning points and catalysts. But throughout all of these changes, we always worked to maintain certain elements, such as a budding friendship, the ship, and our favorite curious little dog. And throughout all of this, we always work to maintain an ethereal feeling mixed with a lovable familiarity. And we always held on to shots that we felt left an emotional impression.
So early on in our production, we met for these group drawing sessions. And since some of us come from traditional arts backgrounds, this is a good way for us to get ideas from our head onto paper quickly and to quickly iterate on them. So here's some early concept art of our man character. And as you can see, there were several things about him that we kept throughout the production, like his boots, beard, and hair. Here are some early concept sketches of our ship, and it was a lot more varied at first, but we settled on a design that we thought fit with the man and contrasted the planet. Again, we had a lot of variation with our dog. Definitely went through a lot of designs, but we finally chose one that we thought was familiar enough to the audience, yet still felt alien.
And here is our dog in 3D. Our dog is a mix between a fox and a desert lizard, while still keeping some dog attributes. He is very playful and very curious.
And here's the man character translated in 3D. His features were inspired by our lumberjack, and he has a very explorative nature.
During our process, we needed to get a good edge flow down for our characters. Our characters' edge flow was important so that when we move the characters, they bend and deform correctly when we animate them. With the man, it is a bit different because he is wearing clothing as opposed to the dog who has just skin.
For our man's clothing, we used a really fun program called Marvelous Designer, which uses the same functionality as traditional clothing to realistically simulate clothing onto our character.
Here's our dog rig. Our quadruped rig was one of our challenges for this project because we had never done a quadruped rig before. We'd only ever done humans in our classes. So our dog rig is a combination of joints and blend shapes, which help us get a more precise deformation.
At the same time that we were developing our characters and our story, we were also coming up with an environment that would that could act as a visually inviting stage for our animation to take place. It was important, like our dog, it was important that his native planet felt both familiar and uniquely alien. We did this in a number of ways. We took a lot of inspiration from desert plants and succulents, which translated into some of the more leafy, pastel, and cactus-like plants that were featured. We looked at underwater and aquatic life, which translated into some of our more bulbous and weird and coral-like plants. And we took inspiration from real-life artists like Dale Chiluli and his glass gardens in Seattle to come up with more crystal-like and alien plants. We tied this all together with our use of color and light, Even in our earliest concept art, we were always coming back to oranges and purples in soft pastel hues, which translated into 3D like this.
After storyboards and reference footage and animating, we rendered out several passes, which we took into the Foundry's Nuke to add things like color correction and matte paintings like you see on the screen to get to our final look that we showed you today. Over the past 10 months, we've spent almost 3,000 hours on this project, and we're glad we got the chance to share it with you today.
But before we go, we want to extend a special thanks to our advisor, Dave Mariello, you demand, to our digital media faculty for giving us education and support throughout this entire process in the past 4 years, to Westfall IT for being on call 24/7 and helping us overcome our technological hurdles, to Jackson Mumford, who is a very talented individual who really captured our vision for this project and single-handedly worked on all of the audio and sound that you heard in not just this project, but other projects today. To the Chestnut St Wawa, who's open 24/7 and provides sustenance to all of us. And to our peers and teammates, it's really important that we have a support network. And we really want to thank each other because we're always giving each other crits. We're in the labs till 4 a.m. And it's always really good to have that family setting. And to you, our family and friends, for coming out to support us today. So thank you very much for listening to our presentation. You can follow us at dragonbonesproductions.wordpress.com. There you can see our animation again. You can see some behind the scenes work. And if you come to our booth afterwards, we have some goodies for you all, especially cookies. So thank you.
From being alone in space, now let's go play together in the skies with dragons. I bring you 10 by 10 studios. 10 by 10 games, sorry, come on out.
Okie doke. Hi, everyone. We are 10 by 10 Games here with our project, Skies of Theros. My name is Josh. I was a programmer on the project and team lead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kevin Carlos, and I was the lead programmer.
I'm Ruben Guzman. I was also a programmer.
I'm Sally M. I'm a character artist.
I'm Pat Kim. I'm a programmer and an artist.
My name is Healthy Mung. I am an animator.
My name is Riley Stewart. I'm an artist.
I'm Ricardo Yanofsky, a motion capture artist.
I'm Robert Fernandez, a motion capture artist.
And I'm Matt Esham, an environmental artist.
So when we were concepting our game, we knew we wanted it to be multiplayer, and we knew we wanted gameplay to be asymmetric between the players. Once we got into the design, we took a lot of inspiration from old co-op and fantasy games, which is how we came up with the Skies of Theros, a world that was destroyed by magic, where dueling factions fight for the control of the ruins of the once great city of Theros. The game itself, Skies of Theros, is a competitive networked multiplayer game where teams of 2, made up of a rider and a dragon, come together on split screen to fight against other players for control of the map. The world they live in is made up of floating islands, which will dynamically shift based on who controls them.
Our decision to create a split-screen game was influenced by network games where each individual on the team plays on their computer as well as local cooperative multiplayer games. We wanted to have one team on a single computer to encourage more communication and strategy. This is further exemplified by asymmetry of our characters who must fulfill different roles to win the game.
This is our rider. He's the character that places the monoliths on the island. He's more agile on land than the dragon, and to further enforce that, we've equipped the rider with a grappling hook. The grappling hook will allow him to pull himself to various elevations as well as quickly mount his dragon. But this doesn't mean the rider can play the whole game on his own, as he'll need the dragon to reach the further islands. During battle, the rider has a powerful bow, which he can use for range combat, as well as a magical sword for close quarter encounters. And typically, one-on-one battle between rider and dragon will end in a knockout for the rider.
Soar through the skies or battle on land with the fire-breathing dragon. Use the dragon's fire breath or fireball attacks to take down opponents and destroy enemy team monoliths. Although the dragon cannot capture islands, the dragon has more strength than the rider and is able to take down opposing team monoliths faster than the rider could.
Each character has their own strengths and weaknesses, so it was up to the player to choose between the two to suit their preference. And don't worry if you die in our game, there is no permanent death state. You'll respawn back at your main base. With each of our characters, you can play solo or cooperatively, but in order to win the game ultimately, the rider and the dragon will need to cooperate.
To win the game, players need to build monoliths on neutral islands to expand the size of their base island. As you land on these islands, there will be altars where you can place these monoliths. Once captured, these monoliths will burn with your team's color, indicating to you, as well as everyone else, that the island is now yours. From there, you can continue to capture more islands, destroy enemy team monoliths, or take the fight to the enemy team directly. The islands are a huge component of our game. Like I said before, as you obtain them, they begin to move towards your base islands. However, once you lose control of the island, they begin to shift back towards their original position. This changes the dynamic of the game as players who continue to win become physically larger and larger targets for the other teams.
With our large focus on player cooperation, we want to make sure we encourage communication between the two players as much as we could. By setting our location in floating islands in the sky, we are able to create a large dynamic map in which players have to constantly communicate and coordinate their efforts in order to navigate the map and conquer territory. Furthermore, with such a large map, we need to make sure players could easily locate not only each other, but also the objectives scattered throughout the map. We do this by making our environment use duller, less saturated colors that contrast with the bright reds and blues of our player characters and their objectives.
As we developed our codependent characters, we chose dragons because they were most ideal for transporting both themselves and another character. The dragon's wings are made of particle fire systems to show the effect of magical devastation on the environment. To match the dragons, we created a hooded and mysterious rider to fit in with the theme of our fantasy world. When we were designing our rider, we fitted him with weathered armor to show his agility and combat experience. When it came down to creating the movements for these characters, we chose to hand animate the dragon, and for the rider, we used motion capture.
We decided to use motion capture in order to have a greater amount of high-quality animations. However, after spending fall term capturing these animations, we realized that we needed our actor to move more like our in-game character. Luckily, we were able to take advantage of Riley's hobby, which is creating armor for reenactments. We had him wear this armor underneath the motion capture outfit. This resulted in the movement that we are looking for. From there, we go through the motion capture pipeline, which includes the initial capture process. Then we go into the data cleanup. Then we have additional data cleanup, animation tweaking, and from there, we're left with our finalized looping animation that's ready to be implemented into the game.
Our motion capture performances did not always give us the results that we were looking for. However, by adjusting the speed and improving the poses, we were able to refine them into high-quality animations that better fit the needs of our gameplay and the style of the game. For both the dragon and the rider, we created blend space systems, which allowed us to transition animations seamlessly during certain movement modes. Also, all these animations needed to be built into a complex logic in order to respond to the player's controls.
Before you join us upstairs to battle for the skies of Theros, we'd like to thank our advisor, Michael Wagner, as well as Professor Robert Lloyd, the entire digital media department, our audio team, and finally, our family and friends.
Follow us and download Skies of Theros at 10x10.games. Thank you.
Well, you can play with dragons, or you can play with a robot in virtual reality, and that will be brought to you by Wetware Games. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. We are Wetware Games, and we are excited to share with you our senior capstone project, Shadow Circuit. I'm Daniel Ingman. I'm the art lead and an artist on the team.
I'm Mike Cancelosi. I'm an artist and programmer.
I'm Corey Zikalala. I am an artist and an editor.
I'm Tyler Schacht. I'm also an artist.
I'm Ryan Batterina. I am also an artist.
We were assisted by a computer science team comprised of Sanjay Balaji, Michael DeLuca, Andrew D'Annunzio, John Gall, Johanna Oberto, and their advisor, Jeff Salvage. They've been equally instrumental in bringing this project to life, and thanks to their hard work and dedication. And without any further ado, we'd like to launch right into our trailer.
Thank you. Shadow Circuit is a fast-paced, sports-like game that takes place in a dystopian cyberpunk future where corporations pit the player against their top-of-the-line AI to see whose equipment performs better. Simply put, utilizing your gravity whips and the gravity wells inside a vacuum-sealed arena, players must compete in a clandestine sparring match in virtual reality using the HTC Vive.
So first, we'd like to take a little bit of time to explain the platform that we developed for. The HTC Vive is a virtual reality headset that tracks the player's head and hands using a pair of infrared lighthouse sensors. What this means is that the player, in addition to having their head, but also their hands, means that they can interact with the game world with a greater level of immersion than is present in other VR-capable headsets. We realize that the Oculus Touch now has comparable capabilities in terms of tracking the head and hands, but when we were starting in early pre-production, the Oculus Touch was not commercially available, so we logically chose the HTC Vive. For Shadow Circuit, this means that the player gets to play the game as if they were actually present within the game world, spinning and looping the gravity whips around in order to throw and catch the ball. Here you can see a player using the Vive to demonstrate how he can interact with our game. His head and hands are being tracked by the Vive hardware and being replicated within the game world.
So now that you've seen some footage of our game, we'd like to delve into the various mechanics that make up Shadow Circuit. First, we have the gravity whip, which is the main tool that allows the player to grab and return the ball in a way that is not possible without virtual reality. There's a lot of physics happening behind the scenes here, and it was really a great hurdle to overcome in production, but once we did, we really saw the main potential that we had in this game.
These orbs are called gravity wells. There's also a lot of physics involved in how these work, but basically they take the ball's existing speed and trajectory and calculate a new velocity and direction for the ball, effectively slingshotting it around the arena. This can lead to unpredictable results. In order for these gravity wells to function in an interesting and fun way, our game must take place in a zero-gravity environment. The ball can travel anywhere around the arena, even behind the goals, so the player has to keep their head on a swivel in order to track and catch the ball.
The player is pit up against an AI opponent, which comes in 3 modes of difficulty: easy, medium, and hard. Easy is basically where he just body blocks, while hard is where he fully utilizes the gravity whip and the gravity wells to try to overcome the player and score a goal.
By using the gravity whip, gravity wells, and zero gravity mechanics, players try to score on the goal that's located at the other side of the arena. How do you win, you may be asking? Well, simply depending on the game mode, they either have to score enough goals to reach a score limit or earn more points than the AI by the end of the time allotted. So we spent a lot of time trying to get the correct feeling for our game, and thus the art progress went on the back burner. Making the controls fun and feel natural to the player in the headset was our main goal in our early builds. Once the Gravity Whip had that natural feel that we were looking for, the art team then went full force into production. Making sure the mechanics felt really good in VR was extremely important because almost all of our original ideas didn't use the full potential of VR.
So that leads into why we did VR in the first place. And we developed for virtual reality for the same reason we decided to use Unreal Engine 4 as our engine of choice. We wanted to take on the skills we learned during our time at Drexel and put them forward towards a programming and design challenge on a new platform. Consumer VR spiked in popularity recently, and 4 years ago, you wouldn't be able to just walk into a store and buy them as you would be today. But above all, we wanted it to be fun for both you and for us. So audiences agree that our game is fun and it's also accessible. We created Shadow Circuit so it has a low skill floor as well as a high skill ceiling for both new and veteran players respectively. This way, new players, as you can see here, are easily able to pick up the whips for the first time and score a goal on the AI on the easier difficulty, whereas veteran players are able to pick up the whips, use advanced maneuvers they've learned during their time they play, and score on the harder difficulty AI.
We accomplished a lot during these last few months of development, but one of our biggest accomplishments is releasing our game onto Steam. For those of you who don't know, Steam is the largest digital distribution platform for video games with over 125 million users. To date, we are the first senior project team to commercially release our game onto Steam as an early access title.
Thank you.
The whole process, it wasn't easy though. There was a lot of administrative and development preparation we had to do to get our game out there in not only a stable, but also a playable state. But the experience itself was very valuable in that we learned not just the publishing process for independent developers, but also for AAA developers. We now feel better prepared in the future for publishing other games we might want to develop after graduation. Finally, to end things off, we'd like to give a huge thank you to our advisors, Stefan Ronk and Jeff Salvage, Professor Robert Lloyd, the gamers out there who bought our game already, all of you for showing up, and the many people out there who supported us during these long and hardworking months, including friends and family.
Thank you all for taking the time to come see us present today. If you'd like to follow any further progress, you can visit us at www.wetware.games. From there, you can find links to our development blog and Facebook page. If you'd like to support us on Steam, you can visit us at tinyurl.com/shadowcircuit. Once again, thank you all for coming out here. We hope you all come try Shadow Circuit at the exhibition after the showcase. Thank you all very much.
In space, on a plate, or in the ocean, lobsters are weird.
Hi, we're Lobsters Are Weird, and we're here today to present our final animation, Honu. I'm Brendan Brown.
I'm Daniel Fatkin.
And I'm Ian Hartman.
I'm Matthew Rotella.
I'm Matthew Majinski.
And I'm Jacob Jones, and this is Honu. Pre-production on Honu began more than a year ago, in February of 2016. When we first started meeting as a group, we bonded over our love of science fiction, experimental animation, and all things space. That's when it occurred to us that an experimental animation about space played to our strong suits as designers. It allowed us to create fantastic landscapes and technical flourishes inside an experimental and sandbox-like environment. Lobsters Are Weird had a whole universe to fill with our ideas, and the passion and excitement for filling in that universe hit us hard before senior project even formally began. So we started making concept art, a lot of concept art. In all the spare moments of our co-ops, be it backstage at a music festival, chest deep in a fossil pit, or in the hallways of a children's hospital, we began filling our sketchbooks with ideas. But we realized that a string of landscapes wouldn't convey the themes that we wanted to. We were always interested in telling about the vastness and beauty of space, but without a framework, it fell deaf on the audience. So that's when we realized that we should use a color story. Using Edgar Allan Poe's poem El Dorado and paying close attention to color theory and the psychology of color, we developed color palettes that would explain the emotional journey of the knight in the poem and applied them to our project. It's still possible today to see those original manifestations of the color palettes in the final renders, even though slight modifications have been made.
As we narrowed our ideas down to one of a lone ship on a journey, we began to create concept designs for it. Like everything else in the project, this was an iterative process. Here's a sketch of the ship from September. Here's one of the mock-up models we made in October. And by February, we had the final ship asset as it appeared in the film. Our design needed to be utilitarian and tough enough to handle the harsh environments we would put the ship through, but we also wanted to avoid traditional boxy spaceship designs. In the end, we found inspiration from the sea turtle, both because of their reputation as world travelers and because of their distinctive silhouette. The final design of the ship blends real-world space engineering with our own artistic embellishments. The ship was modeled in the Foundry Moto, and it was textured in the Foundry Mari using a combination of hand-painted and procedural effects. The final ship has articulated wings, flaps, landing gear, and a ramp that our animators could control. It also has controllable window lights and running lights, which serve to lift it off our environment backgrounds.
Honu for us was always about exploration, so we knew from the very beginning that we needed interesting environments for our spaceship to explore. The final version of Honu has 9 unique space environments and 6 planets, each with their own special feature, such as giant glowing cubes or tall stone columns. Each shot started out as concept art to figure out the overall look and feel that we wanted to achieve. Then we used simple geometric shapes to block in the composition. Those simple shapes were later replaced with more complex environment sculpts done over a period of months, which were then textured and lit as realistically as possible. And finally, here's the environment as it appears in the finished film with all of the atmospherics and effects added.
Throughout the project, we knew that we wanted to add a lot of atmosphere and life to each one of our scenes, so we knew we needed to make all of our effects as well as possible, and we relied on Houdini to do so. The start of our process usually started with rough 3D geometry that they would then sculpt into shapes like we see here in the clouds. And through the modeling of these clouds to make the volumetric shapes, we could then layer them into our scenes and create these vast deepscapes of clouds and other effects. Houdini gave us a tremendous amount of flexibility throughout the entire pipeline to quickly expand upon any of our setups to give us a better result by the end of the project. And other effects like we see here with the dust and the embers, or here with the engines, the heat distortion, and the contrail behind the ship. These all add life, and they all start to add what we take for granted as the invisible air in our lives and make it visible in our animation. In our opening shot here, without any of the effects added in, it feels a little cold and lifeless, but even as a still image, when we add them back in, we start to feel the atmosphere being built into the shot. And in motion, this becomes very apparent. In our second to last sequence with our ship, without anything else in the shot, without any engines, it still feels too lifeless and too cold. And once we even add them back in, it starts to add life and tell a different story. And in motion, it starts to really convey a story of the struggle and its hope to regain life and continue on its journey.
The procedural setups gave us a lot of time to iterate throughout the entire year from fall to spring, which allowed us to get a high fidelity of all of our shots and all the effects in them. Our planetary core here went through multiple revisions throughout the way.
Once we had the ship animation environments and effects, it was time to composite them into our final images. Here in the asteroid field sequence, you can see the layering of those elements and others like the background and atmospherics. In addition to compositing computer-generated elements, we had two live action shoots. Here you see us on the left creating the dust for the sequence where the ship is floating in darkness. On the right are actor Elizabeth in a jumpsuit and most like a helmet to portray our astronaut. And here they are in the final film.
Now, even after we took our images through the compositing step, we knew that we wanted to push many of them even further through a number of post-production processes, but the most notable of which is a process of purposefully breaking and corrupting our images using something called data bending, which to explain data bending, I will first explain that in the world of computers, data is data, and in its raw state, the computer doesn't know the difference. So we're able to use a program that's normally used for editing audio to edit video. And that's really weird. And we're proud to have something truly experimental in our experimental film. And we centered up on this process of taking images into an audio program and then back out, because the audio program not only gave us a great way to visualize the data and apply effects, but the results were predictable and reliable. And to demonstrate this, I'll take you through just a few of them right now. And you can make note of how the data changes with the waveform in the bottom right-hand corner. Now, for this first image, we applied an echo to the raw data, and just as you'd expect, the image echoes across the screen. You can see the ghosting of the ship and how the lines in the tunnel form this like wild cross-hatching pattern throughout. For this next image, we applied a fade out to the data, and that crushes the data, limiting the amount of colors it can display, which then resulted in this blobby watercolor look that you see before you. For this next image, we applied a reverb to the data, and just again, as you'd expect, the image reverberates across the screen, giving us all these great bits of swirly goodness. And finally, for this last image, we applied a phaser. And a phaser is an audio effect that shoots the sound between the left and right speakers, and it did just that to our image, brushing our image data left and right across the frame.
In conclusion, Lobsters are thankful to Jeremy Frenzler, our advisor, who always reminded us to add a little more razzmatazz, Robert Lloyd, who put up with more lobster puns than any person should, Elizabeth Rundell, our actress, and also Rashad Bansingh, the greatest composer we could have ever asked for, John Burton and Ted Arts, who gave us some in-depth critiques, Jay Rappaport and Westfall IT for providing us with a fan so we didn't melt along with our computers, Drexel University and the Westfall College of Media Arts and Design, and all of our friends and family for being here today. If you'd like to learn more about our journey, please visit our website at lobstersr.online.
And with that, I thank you, but wait, I'd like all the seniors to come back out here and fill the stage, please. So can we clear the aisles there and have all of our seniors up? And now we'll have opportunities for photos. If we can bring the house lights up, please. Excellent. Now is your chance. And I would like to, as we fill the stage with seniors, give them all a very well-earned final round of applause. Well done. This side, come on. We got lots of room. All right. All right, no, stay in the light. All right. So come on down, take pictures. I remind you that the exposition upstairs has already begun. Wait, why aren't you at your tables right now? Light refreshments will be served. We have some graduate students up there to show off their